What if I told you that most people don't actually read books? They just pass their eyes over words and forget almost everything within days. Think about it. How many times have you finished a chapter, closed the book, and realized you can't even explain what you just read? It feels like learning, but nothing sticks. Now here's the twist. One of the smartest physicists in history, Richard Feynman, believed that if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it at all. And hidden inside that idea is a method so powerful it can completely change how you absorb books forever. Imagine your brain like a glass. Every time you read passively, it's like pouring water into a glass full of holes. Information goes in and quietly leaks out. But Feynman approached learning differently. He didn't try to store information. He tried to transform it. Instead of reading like a student trying to memorize, he read like a teacher preparing to explain. Let me show you what that means with a simple thought experiment. Imagine you just read a page about gravity. Not equations, just a simple explanation. Objects fall because of Earth's pull. Most people nod, move on, and feel like they get it. But now pause. Close the book. Try explaining gravity out loud as if you're teaching a 10-year-old. Suddenly something strange happens. You hesitate. You search for words. You realize you don't fully understand what pull actually means. That moment, that discomfort, is where real learning begins. Feynman's method is built around this exact moment. Instead of avoiding confusion, you hunt for it. Because confusion is not a weakness. It's a signal. It's your brain telling you exactly where the gaps are. Here's how it works, but not as steps. Think of it as a shift in mindset. You start reading something. Anything, a book, an article, even a complex idea. But instead of trying to finish it, your goal is to understand it so clearly that you could explain it in the simplest possible way. Not using fancy words. Not repeating the author. Your own words. Like you're explaining it to someone who has zero background. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you try to do that, your brain switches modes. You're no longer a passive receiver. You become an active processor. It's like the difference between watching someone solve a puzzle and actually solving it yourself. One feels easy. The other rewires your brain. Feynman used to say that nature doesn't care how smart you sound. It only responds to how well you understand. And understanding is not about complexity. It's about clarity. Let's make this real. Imagine you're reading about how electricity works. You see terms like current, voltage, resistance. Normally, you'd keep going, trusting that it will make sense eventually. But using this method, you stop and ask yourself, can I explain this simply? You might say, electricity is like water flowing through pipes. Okay, good start. But then questions appear. What is voltage in this analogy? Pressure? What is resistance? A narrow pipe? And suddenly, you're not just reading anymore. You're building a mental model. This is exactly how scientists think. They don't memorize nature, they model it. They create simple, intuitive pictures that explain complex behavior. And here's the surprising part. The more you simplify, the deeper your understanding becomes. That sounds backwards, right? We're taught that complex ideas require complex explanations. But in reality, the opposite is true. If you truly understand something, you can strip it down to its core. Think about explaining how a car works. You could list every component, every technical detail. Or you could say, fuel burns, creates energy, and that energy moves the wheels. One explanation is complicated, the other is clear. Guess which one shows real understanding? Now let's add another layer. When you hit something you can't explain, don't skip it, go back, reread. But this time, read with a purpose. You're not trying to finish the chapter, you're trying to fix the gap in your understanding. It's like debugging code. You don't move forward until the error is resolved. This creates a powerful loop. Read, explain, find gaps. Go back, simplify again. Each cycle makes your understanding sharper, cleaner, stronger. And over time, something incredible happens. You start remembering things without trying, not because you forced them into memory, but because you built them into your thinking. Here's a simple analogy. Memorization is like stacking books on a shelf. Understanding is like building a structure with bricks. One can collapse easily. The other becomes part of you. Now you might be thinking, doesn't this take longer? Yes, at first it does. But here's the trade-off. Most people read fast and forget fast. You'll read slower, but remember longer. And not just remember, you'll be able to use what you learn. This is exactly why Feynman stood out. He wasn't just intelligent, he was clear. He could take the most complex ideas in physics and explain them in a way that felt almost obvious, not because the ideas were simple, but because his understanding was deep. Let's try one more thought experiment. Imagine you're reading a book about time. It says time slows down near massive objects. Sounds fascinating, right? But instead of moving on, you pause. You try to explain it. Time slows down because gravity affects it? That's vague, so you dig deeper. You imagine a clock near a black hole ticking slower than a clock on Earth. Why would that happen? What does slower even mean? Suddenly, you're not just reading about time, you're questioning it. That curiosity, that tension between what you know and what you don't, is the engine of learning. And here's the hidden benefit. This method doesn't just help you understand books. It changes how you think. You become more precise, more aware of what you actually know versus what you assume. You stop being fooled by complicated language. Because you've trained yourself to cut through it. In a world full of information, that's a superpower. Now let's bring it back to you. The next time you pick up a book, don't aim to finish it. Aim to absorb it. Read a small section. Close the book. Explain it out loud. If it feels messy, that's good. That's where the learning is happening. Go back, refine, simplify, turn confusion into clarity. And here's a small twist that makes it even more powerful. Pretend you're teaching someone real, not an expert. Someone curious but new. When you imagine a real listener, your explanations become sharper, more honest. You can't hide behind jargon. You either understand it or you don't. This is the essence of Feynman's method. Not reading to consume, but reading to transform. Because at the end of the day, knowledge isn't about how much you've read. It's about how much you can use, explain, and connect. So the next time you catch yourself reading passively, remember this. Don't be a student collecting information. Be a thinker building understanding. If this changed the way you see learning, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what's one idea you're going to try explaining today. Because the moment you can explain something simply is the moment it truly becomes yours.